Now I can start the stream. My name is Ramirez. This is an episode of Matrix News. I'm gonna double down on making more episodes towards the series. Do I want to get banned? I don't know. I particularly don't mind. This would be my third or fourth account. But for those who still want to follow me, in the description below is the name of the Telegram group, my Instagram account, and I think that's it. FrogBear.zil was my website, but I just came to learn that the Zilliqa network is no longer allowing their web domains through the, I don't know, technicalities that I need to figure out myself. Wanted to talk about just the Matrix. Let's talk about the simulation that we live in. Wrong button. Where is this? Okay, yeah. Ravel Maganov, the chairman of Russia's second largest oil producer, Lukoil, died Thursday after falling from a hospital window in Moscow. Yeah. So if we assume that nothing was going to happen in between Europe's fight with Russia in terms of energy. Man, falling off a window accidentally must have really sucked. U.S. says China must be held account to the Uyghur genocide after UN report. I know what you heard out of my mouth was Uyghur, but how you pronounce this word is in that way. I still remember the one time that I have a video that I don't have listed on here, where it's a friend of mine from Colombia and a friend of mine who's a Uyghur, and I had them react to Childish Gambino, "This Is America," and I was asking them, like, it was like my very first attempt at a reaction video, and meeting him, my buddy who's a Uyghur, for the first time was really weird because I've never met anybody like that. That's the best way I can write. Like, spoke in a very weird English accent. Acted like he acted like urban. He acted like somebody from the hood. I don't know how to explain that. And just was a very weird character. But one thing was for sure, once I got to really know him, I got to understand that, like, he could not go back to his home country. He was not allowed to go back to his home country. Like, his mom and dad literally forced him to leave the country because he had been a part of some protest. The government knew who he was. A variety of different problems. I don't know if he's still here, but it's been a while since I talked to him. Here we have U.S. officials order NVIDIA to halt sales of top AI chips to China. Now, if nobody recalls, Nancy Pelosi's husband recently had calls on NVIDIA, purchased a bunch of shares. Then it was announced that there was going to be this bill that was going to give a bunch of money to certain weapons, or not certain weapons, certain manufacturers for certain chipsets. And coincidentally, NVIDIA was one of them. But right the day before that the bill goes to get voted for, Nancy Pelosi's husband pulls out and sells all his shares. And I remember having a question of, like, because I fully know what's going on with there's two ways of viewing the digital revolution. There's viewing the digital revolution from the narrative that the news is telling you, from what the media is telling you, from what actively available resources you could gather. There's that digital revolution. Then there's the digital revolution that I subscribe to, which is a much different side of the story that nobody really likes to hear. But I remember asking the question of, what does NVIDIA do right now with cryptocurrencies? For most people who don't know, you need graphics cards in order to process transactions on certain cryptocurrency networks. Litecoin, Ethereum, and Bitcoin are the three largest, but they all use graphics cards for processing power. Now, how that relates to this bill and how it relates to the digital revolution future that I've been being keenly aware of, I'm not entirely too sure. But as all things usually work out, there's usually a connecting, bridging factor that shows that there is some correlation to an agenda that's going on. But moving forward, oh yeah, this is a really quiet video, so I don't know if it'll sound good.
I shared with you guys the other day was the census report showing 13.4 million households in default, and 36% of those expect to be evicted or foreclosed in the incoming 2 months. That's from a lender.
And she's talking about the housing market. Currently, the housing market looks like it's about to crash and burn. But she's talking about a census report that says 13% will default and 36% will be evicted or foreclosed. These are very, very similar. Well, not that many people projected this. I should actually probably show this guy. Could I even find him quickly? Yeah, I don't think so. Let me just show this video or play this video while I look for this.
Welcome to 2022, where you can do anything a man can do. I am so excited to finally be here. You are going to love it. Feminism has done so much for women. Do tell. No more aprons, first of all. Oh, do we finally have a butler to cook for us? Oh gosh, no, you'll just eat pre-made greasy crap out of a bag on your way to and from work. I suppose that sounds convenient, so I get to work outside the home? Totally. You get to sit in a cubicle all day while you stare at a computer screen, chugging coffee. So liberating, right? I suppose. I'm at work all day. Will we finally have a Rosie the robot maid? No, you'll still have to do all the cleaning. That's what your weekends are for, cleaning and laundry. Oh, and errands and yard work. Wait, so I have to work full time plus still manage my home full time? I mean, you want to have it all, right? Okay, but what about my husband? Is he amazing? What? No, you're not married. You live alone with your cat. What? You do date though. A lot. You can just have sex with whoever, whenever you want. That sounds kind of gross actually. Just pick them off of this app. What about pregnancy? Oh, there's this magic pill you take, totally wrecks your hormones, but keeps you from getting pregnant so you can, knock some boots. The pill is magic? Well, it's mostly effective, but don't worry. If by chance you do get pregnant, you can totally just kill the baby by having an abortion. Why would I do that? So you can get back to work, duh. Someone has to fill that cubicle space. Okay, am I at least happy? Yeah, as long as you don't skip your antidepressant pill. Another magic pill. Gotta cope somehow. I think I'll just stay here. Get to have purple hair.
Now, yeah, to be fair, like, this is all in jest, but when you word out, like, it's always the thing of when you word out exactly what is happening, usually what you hear out loud and what you think you're doing won't match up. This is kind of why, but I can't remember what teacher taught me this, but it was always, I think it was like the English teacher, because they would always tell me, like, read your essay out loud. And then they would just be like, say what you just said, but can you say it a different way? I guess that's like the exercises that I always had. Oh yeah, I shared this on my Instagram. My Instagram, by the way, is frog_bearish. I never say that. But yeah, it's weird that there's apparently a Pepe the Frog exhibition in China right now, where they're just showing Pepe the Frog as an art exhibition. And that makes no sense to me. Like, why the Chinese would do this, like, at all. I'm surprised I'm not fading even more. Like, this is a really green shirt. You know what? Debunking conspiracy doesn't always work. A new study by YouTube says pre-bunking might. Yeah. I'm not. Now that I think about this article, and now that I think about the message that I got, it starts to add up a bit, you know. Here we have, I actually don't know what this is from. I didn't actually have time to view it when I first found it. Oh yeah, how the Russians turn off the gas pipe and how it turns off the power of Europe. China getting polluted, the stock market. To be fair, it could be something very timely. I just don't know where. Have you got news for you? I have no idea what the show is from. So, I'm not going to claim that I know anything about it. So, 33 school boards were taken over by GOP in Florida elections. Scott Pressler, far right Stop the Steal organizer, warned us, we're coming for your school boards. He spends all his time on the road registering voters. Now, I know what Linda's trying to say here. Linda's trying to say that the Republicans are attempting to take over your school boards. But are we going to ignore the fact that that's what Facebook did? Are we going to ignore the fact that Facebook, by and large, paid vans and paid organizers to go to minority neighborhoods to get all of the older generations to register to vote? And in most cases, telling them who to vote for? And educating them on what bills and propositions were, and then coercing them into picking these? I get it. When you word it that way, it makes it seem like, oh wow, Republicans are really aiming to take over their district. But without acknowledging the fact that, we'll reverse it. Are there things that are being done on the Democratic side that mimic the same behavior? And fucking 10 out of 10 times, dude, 10 out of 10 times. I'm not saying one side is right or the other side is right. I'm just saying that these are just tactics. You use them or you don't. And the reason why, by and large, Democrats don't have to do this is because you already control everything else. You control the movies, you control television, you control entertainment, you control comic books. Fuck, you even exerted control over the video game industry from like the year 2013 to 2015. And if it wasn't reached by ideological means, China came right in and bought over 50% of the company. So, excuse me if I don't want to participate in the shenanigans. Oh yeah, I found this video. Very not nice.
The FDA allows 74 insect parts per chocolate bar. Applesauce can only contain 12% mold. 16-ounce jar of peanut butter, 16 rodent hairs is the limit. No more. Your spaghetti sauce can only contain 15 fruit fly eggs per 100 grams. Vary from a brand name to a generic drug, can have up to a 20% difference. Behind about 4% is the real number. Out of all the limits, I'm not so sure branded generic is the worst.
You know, we like to think that our industry, our processing plants, our manufacturing is top tier, but when you read the fine print, it usually tends not to turn out that way. And by and large, I always say that it's not even the fault of the business, and it's not the fault of the employee. In reality, it's the fault of the system. The way I see it is, the FDA does not allow just anybody to open up a processing plant, a storaging plant, a packaging plant, let alone a kitchen. There are these huge, stringent requirements in order for you to open up any of these plants that it prices out most normal people. So all of these processing plants, all of these farmers, all of these usually fall under the umbrella of a corporation, because that's the only way that a lot of these people could actually maintain a quote-unquote business. And when in reality, it's not even a business at that point. It's ownership under the veil of government sponsorship, when in reality, government will always exert itself over those farmers in order for them to do what the government wants. Welcome to why I always bring up eugenicists and the fact that these people had planned out that if it doesn't work through the science institutions, well, they'll just practically own all the land, all the food, all the resources. Shit, Monsanto, by and large, since they figured out that they can sue people for patents, they've been trying to take over all agriculture, or any meaningful sense of agriculture left in this country over. And it's by and large why they hate the Amish. They want the Amish completely destroyed because the Amish are the only people that still have the practice of making their own seeds. And as a corporation who has its hands in everything related to seeds, what do you think they're going to do? You think they're just going to be nice, warm-hearted people and leave the Amish alone? Or do you think they're going to act the way that they've acted time and time again through complete, right? It's not even out in the open. They get their lawyers, they get the judges, they get the cops, they get the senators, they get the representatives, and they slowly coerce the culture into making things the way they wanted to. I get really angry when I think about that, but whatever. Biden's ghost gun bans takes effect and only lasts a single minute. Very interesting. Here we have flooding in Pakistan, right? I kind of thought it was funny that in China right now and here in LA, like the heat wave is getting super into it. And I'm like, okay, this is weird. And meanwhile, there are other areas that are just experiencing the inverse, right around the time where they're supposed to be feeling the heat. It's like, no, we're going to switch these things real quick. Sorry, trying to burp, but I can't burp. Oh, whatever. Okay, Jack Sobek, right? Jack Sobek, my boy. What do you work for? What intelligence agency you work for? Like, I remember you replied to one of my tweets once. I'm watching. No, I'm joking. But he posted this, and it's essentially a meme where the meme comes from JoJo's Bizarre Adventures because that's the art style. But the meme is just yes, right? The Chad meme, the side profile, yes. Now, I just don't like how he's incredibly Catholic. Like, this is literally, that's the Vatican flag for those who don't know. I also have it on the pyramid. Do I still have the other Vimeo here? No, I deleted it. So the pyramid that I have, I put that flag on there because it represents their control over religion. And like the control hidden hand thing that I have here. Let me turn on this. So this control hand thing that I have here is what relates to the flag that I have drawn on my pyramid. In this one, you can't necessarily see it, but there's strings attached to each major religion or each major religious philosophy. And to represent the fact that, by and large, they've been controlled through these means. And it's why I think the Vatican makes this cheeky representation of them holding the keys of silver and gold. It all has to do with their history, them being a banking entity, and how they've essentially started a secret war. And I don't know, it gets too complicated for me to explain in one of these. Look, I know, I get it. Some people only have the Catholic religion. Some people will clutch to their pearls and be like, but I'm still a good Christian. And I'm like, yeah, you are. But the people who run the organization have clearly not acted in accordance in which would make you assume that they're acting in any meaningful capacity towards the word of Scripture. I'm just saying, like. And then and then Jack Sobek put repent heretic. I was like, okay, my boy. Okay. Either way. 6,000 Americans under the age of 35 will pass on this year from SADS, sudden arrhythmia death syndrome. They will fall asleep one night and never wake again. And I'm like, bro, what the fuck? That's like, some people won't quantify it, but it's just like, you realize what we just experienced these last 4 years, right? I have a video that, actually, I should probably just look for that video right now. Uh-oh, what did I do? Okay. I was just touching the wrong button on the wrong screen. It's okay. Nothing burning. Where is it? It's the... Because I thought it was hilarious how they were trying to paint Trump in this very specific way. Oh, I probably didn't even actually share the video. Oh yeah, here it is actually.
They have to get the shot. The vaccinations are so important. This is really going around now. They have to get their shot. Get their shot. Get their shot. Came up with vaccines that you're using, we're all using, the world is using, saved tens of millions of people throughout the world.
Hold on, wait for it.
In less than 9 months, it was supposed to take 12 years.
We were supposed to take 12 years. The initial mock-up plan was 12 years. But everybody wants to get Harvard
I just
on.
heard the other day, they were expecting it to take 12 years. And everyone said it wasn't going to work, and they worked incredibly well. We've done an amazing job. If you love the country, you have no choice. If you love the country, you have no choice.
Anytime you have to resort to editing on this kind of level, it's like you're desperate. You're really desperate to try to paint this idea. But I don't know. I will always entertain all aspects of a theory just because it's impossible to assume the motives of somebody when you don't know them that entirely well. And when you have somebody like Trump who's been polarized since this motherfucker decided to run for office, what makes you think I'm going to believe anybody's opinion? Like, and statistically, how many of those people have been right? As the goalpost has moved, as the rhetoric has moved, as the ideas have moved, who's been right? Like, I bet none of the people, like everybody who believes in their little favorite talking head YouTuber, most of the time, they're not even right. Most of the time, they'll be like 75% right at the time. And I'm just like, bro. 12 years. It's just like, oh, we'll just wait until everybody stops paying attention to this. We'll just wait until everybody gets stupid enough that we don't have to entertain anybody else anymore. It's like, bruh. All right, I wanted to tell this story because talking about the Jesuits, there's this really famous story about how one French monarch told and confessed to a confessional about how he had homosexual urges and about how he wanted to repent over his homosexuality. And instead of that happening, and instead of him being told to repeat certain prayers, the priest comes out of the box and he's like, "Come with me, my son." And then they start blackmailing him, and then they start forcing him to do a bunch of things. But you know, the Catholic Church is a bunch of good boys. When the Bank of England was established in 1694, one of its principal aims was to provide sufficient finances so that England could prosecute its war against France at the time. France was the primary world power both in terms of marine forces and territorial possessions. Since the 7th of June, 1654, France had already ruled by its most glorious monarch, King Louis, the Sun King. Interesting name. King Louis the 14th, right? That's how you would read that. Louis was well versed in the wiles of banking. When he discovered that his superintendent of finances, Nicolas Fouquet, was a representative of what we term today the money power, he had him arrested. Fouquet was put on trial and sentenced to complete isolation for the rest of his life in an accessible fortress of Pegnerol. In politics, I always say this, in politics it doesn't matter at all. If somebody can remove you, deal with you, or do away with you, that's one thing. But what's important is that they've identified that there are these entities, these players, these people who can identify others and identify their power, identify their reach. And in this case, it was his Minister of Finances that he had to deal with. But what I'm saying is, this is a reoccurring pattern where you will see that there are people in power who can look at other people in power and recognize that they have influence over these sectors. It's like me bringing up the Russian who got thrown out of a window. Well, And then somebody's like, oh no, he suicided himself. It had nothing to do with the fact that he was a chairman to a board of a committee where oil is being discussed that Europe is currently really, really desperate for. Nothing to do with that. It's total coincidence. Like what? Anyway, the War of the Spanish Succession, 1702 to 1714, was the largest military conflict since the Crusades. It was fought after Louis declared his intentions to place his grandson, Philip, Duke of Anjou, on the Spanish throne. The attempt, if successful, would have created a vast Franco-Spanish empire and posed a direct threat to the Bank of England and its proxy, the government of Great Britain. With the ability to create money out of nothing, the English were able to build a large fleet and buy the loyalty of France's enemies by bankrolling them. Louis held out for 9 years until his heirs suddenly started to die in unnatural circumstances. I wonder, what does the Jesuit creed say? I wonder if it says anything about murdering in the shadows. Either way, it's a very interesting position in history. But to bring up, what was my final thoughts on this? The succession of throne and how certain families were just done away with. Two of the last families that were dealt away with. This comes down to the fact that I found it very interesting that there was a period of 700 years where there was an effort to destroy, get rid of, and completely make vanish certain family lineages. The last two, one created World War I, and the other is merely a shadow to a Russian empire. So, very weird. Very weird. But these are just all things that just, whatever. Bugs contain this chemical. Talking about if people eat it, you know what I'm saying? It's very bad for you. And they talked about, somebody found a study and they were like, yo, what is the effects of inflammatory and immune responses? And then somebody was like, oh, from that, it creates a cytokine storm syndrome. What's this? And then, it all relates to this thing called chitin. And then there's like all this other stuff. And, don't forget to eat your bugs. They're very healthy for you. Yeah, here we have, it will all come out of one main event, Yeah, okay. How Mormons, okay, I was like, I remember sharing this, but I had a reason for it, and it's talking about child abuse. But the reason why I wanted to keep it was for the second article and the third article, which is how Mormon officials enabled 7 years of sexual abuse, and in deeply Mormon Utah, a push to require clergy report abuse. Now, these articles are recent, obviously, but it brings me back to an interview with Project Camelot, where they were interviewing a woman who was a part of an MK Ultra study. I think it was Project Monarch or I can't remember, but this lady had very specific things that she said, that she was somebody who worked directly under Hillary Clinton, was somebody who dealt with her and a variety of other people that were in public office or officials. And she had a very specific story. And I'm not even going to talk about the politics side of things. I'm talking about her childhood. The things that she said about her childhood is what fucking shocked the fuck out of me. Because she was talking about how she was from a deeply Mormon country, and how when the abuse in her family started, one of the memories that she had strongest when she was a child was when her brother and her father were fighting over who was going to who was going to make her a woman, and that the father and that the son got into a bloody fist fight and this and that, and it was only solved because they went to church, and it was the priest of that church, of the local community, who then had to settle the fight between the dad and the son, and it was the priest who then decided who would then make the daughter the woman. And she later found out that when she got into high school, that the priest wasn't just dictating these matters over her life, and it was a really, really fucking fucked up story, but I could probably still find it too. But okay, what I want to focus on is the fact that the priest was in on it. The priest not only knew of their situation, but the priest also knew of every other person's situation in their town. And it was a deeply Mormon town. And she also gave stories about how somebody that she grew up with, who currently right now is the leader to all of that, how he got into that position of leadership and how he wanted to change things, but how the older generation of Mormons weren't allowing that, and really weird. But she also said some even weirder shit, talking about how the Mormons to some degree were working alongside with various department agencies, and how the Mormons were kind of in on it to look away from certain abuses and from certain people disappearing and from certain things happening. And very weird. And the only reason why I started researching this was because I just wanted to look into... So there was this rumor where Trump had gone to speak to the Mormon... What do you want to call them? So politics, right? Politics, in a weird way, is just a people or a group of people who have power over the larger group of people, right? That means there's an influence there that they can wield with their community. Well, Trump went to go talk to Mormons. There was this whole theory that Trump signed a deal with the Mormons, and that there was something figured out between them that would allow President Trump to have Utah support for the 2020 election and this and that. So there is theories, talks, and a variety of other people who will also mention this, that to some degree there must have been a deal that must have been had between the Mormons and Trump. To what that is, I don't know. So I started digging. I started looking into what weird shit could I find in Utah. And that was some of the weirdest shit that I found in Utah. And some of the crazier stuff was the fact that it is suggested that these Mormons are to some degree working alongside the Catholic Church, and that there is a lot of culpability between them. I don't know. Very interesting stuff. But here we have... Oh, I actually do want to talk about this.
Look at this guy, crazy face.
So I took pictures of Echo Park. I have a video of it. And there are these... I took a picture of the statue. She's called the Queen of Angels. And at the bottom of the base, it has 4 different sides. And one of the sides has these like pointy looking structures, right?
Control building.
Excuse me.
If this is a military facility, it's
Pointy
one with a
structures,
highly unusual
and their
purpose.
pointy structures looked like the Watts Tower. And I was just wondering to myself, like, why are there all these, why isn't there just one? Why are there many of these pointy structures? And when I saw these coils, it looked like...
If you get a good look at these towers,
those pointy
they appear to be
structures.
like weird high voltage equipment.
These installations have a very eerie similarity to Tesla coils. But why would they be built out in the middle of nowhere in Russia?
But you know, very difficult to explain things. I should turn this off. So there is this even weirder thing. Actually, I should just probably turn it on. What does it say here, though? The United States and Body Politics Trust started posting one-word tweets. Now, when it says Body Politics Trust, it basically means this is very difficult to explain. Legalese language, in the language of the law, in the language of the institution, in the judicial sense. Their verbiage describes corporations as vessels. So, weird language. Started posting one-word tweets. Biden joined in at 9:30 with democracy, a communist term. In solidarity, we are Republic Communist. But yeah, to show you those weird-ass... I didn't actually notice it. I took a break from the internet. But it's just one-word things that just were repeated by these certain brands. All within like moments of one another. Very weird stuff. And then it kept going. Hold on. To a second series of them. But either way, it's hello weird woo woo. And here we have Biden remaking climate team picks John Podesta to guide spending by Lisa Friedman via NYT. Now, I understand that a lot of people don't know who John Podesta is, but do yourself a favor. Type in John Podesta and Chester. It'll blow your mind. Then look at John Podesta, what was it, the Starlight Academy or the Star Frontier? John Podesta is a very weird individual. If you look into him, his brother, if you look into anything revolving around Ghislaine Maxwell, the pedogate stuff, if you look at him in terms of political leniency and the things that he's sponsored politically, very weird. Very weird. And the fact that he's being put back into the spotlight especially after Huma Ubadine disappeared for so long, and very weird. Oh, this is actually where I wanted to start the whole stream today because of the things that I was talking about before from America, its weird history, and all this other stuff.
There's two kinds of dangers. One is what I just talked about, that we've arranged a society based on science and technology in which nobody understands anything about science and technology. And this combustible mixture of ignorance and power, sooner or later, is going to blow up in our faces. I mean, who is running the science and technology in a democracy if the people don't know anything about it? And the second reason that I'm worried about this is that science is more than a body of knowledge. It's a way of thinking, a way of skeptically interrogating the universe with a fine understanding of human fallibility. If we are not able to ask skeptical questions, to interrogate those who tell us that something is true, to be skeptical of those in authority, then we're up for grabs for the next charlatan, political or religious, who comes ambling along. It's a thing that Jefferson lay great stress on. It wasn't enough, he said, to enshrine some rights in a constitution or a Bill of Rights. The people had to be educated, and they had to practice their skepticism and their education. Otherwise, we don't run the government. The government runs us.
And that's coming from Carl Sagan, right? The guy who wrote Pale Blue Dot, the guy who like practically helped space and its program be as famous and as popular as it is. This is Carl Jung, and even he's saying that like the fact that our entire system was designed this way is non-conducive to helping people understand science. And you really got to appreciate that somebody like him can even recognize that this was a problem from the beginning. It doesn't help anybody understand science. And when we look at how many people... Okay, I don't particularly subscribe to Flat Earth or Globe Earth. I don't give a fuck. Because I see the same problem Carl Sagan saw, which is it's impossible to figure this out because any of the equipment or anything meaningful is only allowed to be used by certain universities, certain organizations, certain institutions. So and the way that our education has slowly just been slumping downwards ever since 2004 and No Child Left Behind policy, our education systems are so garbage right now that good luck trying to find somebody normal not normal, but just average on the street who could give you an explanation of why the earth is flat, or why the earth is round, I mean. And they couldn't, because all of the science that they were taught wasn't conducive enough for them to understand how to explain it in a meaningful way to somebody to prevent the other person from becoming a flat earther. So, I don't know. Very interesting how Carl Sagan, like a guy who a lot of people revere as being an intelligent individual, would also be like, we also need a healthy society to be skeptics. Here we have Puerto Rico protests, dropping their damaged appliances in front of the governor's mansion to protest outages. And one moment. Okay. Had somebody walk in and be like, can we do this a later time? Now, where was I? Protesting Puerto Rico. Yeah, here's the other one. Forcing waterboarding torture on people. Psychologically training them to do it themselves. It's like the most powerful tool ever to get somebody to believe it themselves. To get them to do it to themselves is the best way possible. Because any other way involves too much force, too much of a bloody affair. You have too many cell phones. It creates too much of a narrative. So it's better for somebody to just, well, can we trick them into doing it themselves? And I think that's what was discovered very early on with some of the earliest, what do you want to call it, psychological training programs. Also discovered that you can purchase these books.
I pulled my children out of public school. We're homeschooling this year, and I wanted to share the math that I found. Consumer math, mathematics of housing and taxes, mathematics of trades and professions, mathematics of banking and credit. And y'all, in the mathematics of housing and taxes, it is teaching them how to calculate their utilities, about homeowners insurance, about how to rent an apartment, deductions you claim on your taxes, how to choose the correct tax forms, state and city income taxes, how to fill out tax forms, which ones you should use, the difference between a W-2 and a 1099, reporting income, y'all.
Things that are never taught in public education. That should be what that should be chalked up to. Found this documentary. Me personally, still haven't watched it, so I will not be linking this in the description below. Because I believe that if I'm about to recommend a documentary, I have to watch it first, and I have to actually write out the purpose of the documentary. I don't feel like a lot of people understand that the way some documentaries are worded, some of the ways that they're directed, and some of the way that information could be displayed in certain documentaries lead people down the wrong path, in the sense that the documentary will offer a lot of truth, but it'll be written for a Zionist propaganda, or it'll be written for a specific climate agenda, or it'll be written for the UN agenda, or parts of the history will be removed just so it looks kinder towards one side than the other. A perfect example of this is that Europa movie. The Europa movie has so much truth in it that it is integral into understanding what happened after World War II. But the huge problem here is it's written with the Zionist agenda in mind. It's written with the explicit intent of creating two different factions, and it's specifically intended to cater to an extreme right-winger view, so that it, you know, kind of promotes and it helps them cement their anger, so that it gets them really angry into doing something. And I just don't know. That Europa movie plays too much of a part into the black and white chessboard game, that it's a very difficult thing for me to recommend to somebody, especially if they believe that tiny hats rule the world and they're not willing to quantify how other nations played a part in this. And they're not willing to quantify that, like, yes, they were allowed all of these magistrate positions, but it doesn't mean that they're the final authority or the final say-so. Because if these lower positions fuck up, the guards will get them. The guards won't side with the magistrates. The guards, by guards I mean the cops, the feds, the DOJ, they won't side with the tiny hats. Because even they don't have the full ownership or the full authority of whatever these systems are. But it's a very difficult thing to explain to some of these wingnats, because they're just too caught up in their little white paradigm. I get really angry about these sort of things. But the Cult of the Medics, I haven't watched that either. Just barely found those videos. Here we have...
When someone like him tells you there's an island that they take influential people and they have sex with underage people, you'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then if you told me years later that the guy, Epstein, would, first of all, go to jail for doing that very thing, for having sex with underage people, then still be able to court people like Bill Gates and be able to have them and travel with them and go places with them, and then years later he would be suicided in some way where all the cameras stopped working and no one ever got brought to justice for it in any significant way, and that years after that Ghislaine Maxwell would be arrested, that she would be tried, that she'd be convicted, and that the list of the people that engaged in this illegal activity would never be released. I would say that is a banana republic bullshit thing. That's not going to happen in the United States of America. No, people are going to be brought to justice. I don't care how powerful they are, but that's not the case.
No. I got mosquitoes trying to bite me right now. And that's where we are right now. And that's literally what we're witnessing right now. And I just love the way Joe Rogan put it, because it's like, that will not happen in the United States. I will be damned if this and that. Like, right, he sounds like that. He sounds like he's playing that position in that rhetoric. But that's what we witnessed. That's what we're living through. That's what we're witnessing. That's what we're seeing. And for a lot of people, it won't quantify. And I completely understand why. Because they still want to subscribe to the world model that they were told is the way things work, is the way things are. And, you know, it gets very difficult to quantify for certain people, because they don't want to believe that everything is complete garbage, complete shit. They want to believe that there's something more meaningful towards this entire system that we've dedicated our lives to. And I wish for that too. I wish that we can make more meaningful steps towards a future that was actually governed by just natural occurrences, but it's just not how the way history's played out for us. Now, for a funny meme.
Question for the men. What the fuck do you want?
Tradition. I don't even know if I want to believe this video.
We feed pigs plastic. And if you don't believe me, check out this TikToker who got fired from his job for exposing the industry. Every food company, from asparagus to candy bars, sends their food waste to get turned into pig's feed. Why? Because it's cheaper than getting rid of it themselves. Do they take the food out of the packaging? Absolutely not. That would defeat the purpose of it being cheaper. So they just grind it into a powder, press it into pellets, feed it to pigs, because pigs will eat anything. Apparently, so will humans. And if you think it's just the big meat manufacturers doing this, check out this local farm.
We've been emptying it into the grain bins,
and we gave the pigs a sampling of it last night, and of course it was gone right away. We threw some to the calves to see if they'd like it, and they liked it also. So we're going to cut back some of our green use and give them some bread products. $40 a feed, and figured out that it's about $2,000 worth of seed converted, like if you were to figure out the...
I really do not want to believe in it. I really do not want to believe that this is what they're feeding the animals. But we live in America. We live in a country where the psychopaths get to decide what we do with our food, what we get to do with our waste. Right? Like, isn't that fucked up? How, if this is true, right? If this is true, that if we give the pigs, the animals, all of the fucked up food that we don't sell in the supermarkets, yet a fast food restaurant, businesses, local businesses can't give their food to the homeless? What the, like, I don't know. Either way. Russia's Gazprom says it can't restart the Nord Stream gas pipeline as planned after oil leakage. I wonder who is this going to hurt more? Is this going to hurt Russians more, or is this going to hurt Europeans more? White House asked Congress to provide $13.7 billion for Ukraine as funds run out. Seeks billions more after the 19 Puxywooks. We need to give everything to Ukraine. Ukraine is a very special circumstance. They need our entire resource. They even need the shirt off my back. Now, pilot threatens to crash hijacked aircraft into a Walmart in Mississippi. Why did I want to say Missouri? Yeah, just videos of the plane. I don't know how the threats came through, but just thought it was very weird how it's one of those planes that still has the spinny engines on each side. Probably a private plane, but either way. Let me show you something scary about batteries.
This is just a regular Energizer lithium battery, and what's inside of it honestly kind of scares me. Just for fun though, I'm gonna open it up, and I've already made a little cut in the outer shell.
Now, I hopefully I don't have to tell you this, but do not do this at home. Hopefully I don't have to tell anybody this.
Opening batteries like this is dangerous, and it's almost always a huge pain, but I was eventually able to pop off its shell. Now I can unroll its insides and reveal the thing that scares me. It honestly doesn't look like much, but it's a bunch of lithium metal, and it's extremely reactive. The metal itself technically isn't what scares me though, and it's what can happen if it's added to water. Normally, it just...
Now, I just want to remind everybody, he got that off of an Energizer battery, right? Not no cheap battery, an Energizer battery.
It just fizzles a bunch, and maybe lights on fire. In this foil form from the battery, though, it can sometimes be a bit more reactive.
Bruh. I use rechargeable batteries, and I'm just like, bruh. This is terrifying. No. As always, take this with a grain of salt, because, you know, the internet, what you find on it, it tends to be very specialized, because it is an unnatural aspect of our lives that we have the ability to see so much in so little time. So I always say, like, hey man, just be careful what you watch. This is a very strange occurrence. And the reason why is because around the 1920s to the 1930s, there was a program in the United States where they were trying to eliminate polio, I think it was at the time. And in the process of them trying to eradicate polio on the stateside, this was one of their solutions. Now, not using a fighter jet. Obviously not using a fighter jet to administrate this. But they had trucks, they had vans, they had whole people coming around fumigating whole towns, whole areas, and it was all to fight polio at the time. So very weird how this video came about. But I'm just clearly stating that there's past events that you could look at and be like, hey, here we have Stockholm, Sweden, U.S. bombers and fighter jets fly by. Who knows what's going on in Sweden? Oh, trip out, right? Buenos Aires. Okay, stop it. Sorry, fighting mosquitoes here. Yo, trip out. They flash a gun in this lady's face. Bam. Nothing happened, obviously. But this is Christina Kirchner. I have no idea who it is, but kind of weird that they would do this to her. Probably this video might get flagged for that, but whatever. Nothing bad happened. Let me play some even more worse videos.
You have a small elite that pushes things in its own interests, even if it doesn't benefit the vast majority of the population. This has happened so many times previously in history, and it's probably going to happen again. One of the biggest dangers to the planet today is this technological utopia, because probably for the elite it will work. If bad
right, if it's for the people who want to play ball, it'll work. If it's for the people that we have controlled, it'll work. If it's for the people that we've already genetically modified, it will work. If it's for us, it will work. But for everybody else,
comes to worst, and when the flood comes, the scientists will build a Noah's Ark for
that. The scientist will build a Noah's Ark for the elite, leaving the rest to drown. Now, that's veiled speech. He doesn't actually mean a flood's gonna come by and completely destroy the earth. In reality, it just means whatever it is, whatever comes and sweeps everyone away, it'll take them. But for us, the people who paid the scientists, will be okay. I'm getting really big here. Oh. Meanwhile, in Argentina, massive demonstrations in Buenos Aires to defend democracy following the assassination attempt last night on the vice president. Oh, she was the vice president. Probably should read these a bit more, you know? Not look like a total knobhead. A muppet. You muppet. I voted for Myra Flores. First time I ever voted Republican. Massive red wave. Now, Myra Flores, another Republican who has promoted QAnon, is headed to Congress. Oh my. Here in America, we are facing a detrimental time where our democracy is being challenged. Now, from Kanye West. From my mom, please tell him to stop mentioning my name. I'm almost 67 years old, and I don't always feel great, and this stresses me to no end. And Kanye replies with, y'all don't have so-so over my black children. I think he's trying to say so. Y'all don't have say-so over my black children and where they go to school. They will not do Playboy and sex tapes. Tell your Clinton friends to come get me. I'm here. Dude, Kanye is wild. He just does not stop. I love that, man. I feel like a bit like a Kanye myself. No, I'm joking. Goes crazy. Go stupid. IRS mistakenly published confidential information of 120,000 taxpayers. Did you get the download before it got taken down? That should not be a question ever. But oh right, reptilian talk.
Thing they teach you in school is a lie. You want the truth? The world is controlled by shadowy elites and shape-shifting lizard people.
Let's talk about reptiles.
You know, the way I see it is a producer, somebody who wanted the funding for the show, somebody must have been like, I like the show. We'll do it. But we gotta and they have to exaggerate absolutely everything about it. Because the way I see it, right, this all sounds bad. The elite controlled shadows, they're reptilians, they shapeshift. In reality, what I hear is shapeshifting behavior is more what do you call that? Borderline disorder? Personally borderline disorder, whatever. Multiple personality disorder, right? Narcissistic behavior, opportunist behavior, bringing up a devil bill, right? Ford's father and what kind of person he was. That's what I hear when I think of that. That's reptilian shit. This exaggeration of like, either way, just so stupid.
How I shed my skin every 1,000 years. And the song Bad Blood was about how I drink blood out of my Grammys.
A toast to blood.
Save some blood for Paul Rudd.
So dumb. In reality, these people are just killers. They're just killers. They just don't care. Like, they're by any means necessary is what I think the elite are. I don't really think the elite are reptilians. I just think they tend to behave like psychopaths. They tend to behave like, you know what I mean? Like some elitist. Like they would probably look at you and be like, smack you and be like, why are you breathing my air? Right? Like they'll, in the case of Fiji, right? They'll go to an island and be like, smack them and be like, how dare you take my water? And they're like, but you don't even live here. You're not even our royalty. Smacks them again. Well, I am now. I'm joking. This is not, I don't even know what I'm saying.
Do you feel like Joe Biden is dividing the...
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry, you said you feel like Joe Biden is dividing the country, but do you feel like Donald Trump is doing the same by falsely telling people that he won that election when he lost it?
How does that divide the country? Questioning an election where there are obviously problems is dividing the country? Since when can we not ask questions about our elections? As a journalist for many years, I was a journalist after 2016, and I distinctly remember many people just like you asking a lot of questions about the 2016 election results. And nobody tried to shut you up.
Damn. Right? Like, oh, you can question the 2020 election. We questioned it, we recounted, we did all this other stuff, but when it comes down to 2022, or it was the 2016 election, but when it came down to 2020, like, you can't just ask questions anymore. Like, we can't just ask, like, hey, we can ask and doubt Trump from 2016, but why can't we ask questions about 2020? Like, really weird stuff.
Nobody tried to tell Hillary Clinton to shut up. Nobody tried to tell Kamala Harris when she was questioning the legitimacy of these electronic voting machines to stop. We have freedom of speech in this country. And
well, we used to. Now we have freedom of speech when you say the right thing. If you say the right thing, we like you saying the right thing. And to end it, like I ended the last episode with Gorbachev, this article suggesting that Gorbachev protecting the KGB kind of paved the way for Putin. Probably should have read it, but I didn't, because I'm quite a type of person when it comes down to it. But talking about the did I just see if it worked? Okay, yeah, this guy talking about the economy and it slamming to the ground. This dude was recently talking about an individual who wrote a book called The Big Short, and how he was one of the few people that identified the collapse of the housing market before it happened with everybody else. And he basically reads from an excerpt from that same individual who's writing about the market in today's conditions, and essentially laying out that we're ready for another one. We're ready for it to all come crashing down. And very interesting how we're in these situations. But Either way, let me click on this Gorbachev link now. In protecting KGB, blah, blah, blah. He kept the KGB's entire archive secret to save the cheekiest reputation and prestige. I'd be surprised if he's trying to say something negative about the KGB, because I'm just like, dude, we took all their shit. Like, when Yuri Bezmenov came over, we literally took everything we knew about them. Returned to Kremlin in the meeting with the president of the Union, USSR. He did nothing to punish the secret police. Instead, it was Boris Yeltsin who gleefully forced the reluctant Gorbachev to sign a decree dividing the KGB into separate parts. Gorbachev's handwriting on the decree, never meant for public view, is strained as if under duress. Very interesting. The splitting up of the Soviet KGB kept the hated old Chekist apparatus in place. Nothing was torn out by its roots. No perpetrators were... I guess... I don't know. Federal Security Service? Federal Security Bureau? The world today is conflicting Gorbachev strategies. I don't know. The way I see it is, the KGB is not as an integral portion to the intelligence apparatus of the world, because it's just one nation. Meanwhile, you have America, who has partnerships with 4 other nations, and we all spy on each other. And let's not even talk about the French Foreign Legion. Let's not talk about every other country's intelligence apparatuses, because in reality, they pale in comparison. Like, in reality, first place is China. Now, in today's age, first place is China. If people do not want to admit to that, ask yourself, how many electronics, chips, or anything in relation to computer manufacturing is done in China? You think they haven't baked in back doors into all of their equipment? The reason why I can't use one of my old Intel computers is because it refuses to boot up. And if I look up what was some of the main manufacturing chips that got manufactured completely through and through in China, oh, I happen to own not only just the CPU, the motherboard, and all these. Point is, they understand from a militaristic perspective that is a lot of power, especially when it's something as private as a home computer. I'm just saying. That's a whole lot of power to just be like, oh, I'm such a nice individual. I'm not gonna spy on your shit. Like, bro, really? For real? That's so first place now, China. Second place is probably tied between like Russia and the NSA. And it's kind of funny because if you know the scores of the NATO security of the NATO had an exercise where we went up against cybersecurity teams, where it was the United States versus the whole world, or it was just a worldwide event. Like, the United States came in 16th place in terms of cybersecurity. 16th place in terms of cybersecurity. Should let you know that we're not really putting a lot of resources into that aspect of things, because we don't need it. It's more beneficial to have the American people be blackmailable than not be blackmailable. Like, it's crazy. And that's why morality is a super important thing, right? I mentioned this in one of my previous videos about how a rapper said that he maintained his faith throughout the whole thing. But one of the things that I failed to mention was you get tested. Like, you get tested through and through. And when you make decisions that aren't right with you, or that aren't right with you morally, and you go against it, in a weird way, you going against that is like you playing along to the Luciferian tune, right? You may not realize how your small action played into this grander evil scheme, but it does. That's why it's important to make sure that, like, you know, we all keep ourselves grounded and stuff, because we could easily let go of 1 or 2 decisions that'll just lead us into spiraling into a whole other bag of woo-woo. That's why I get really angry and distasteful of the whole genetics, this, that, eugenist movement, because it's just all to obfuscate actions. especially when the science is written from the perspective of one side being the victor than the other, when in reality, not one animal in the kingdom is the apex predator of everything. Each animal has something that they're good at, right? It's why you won't see a cat in water, and why you won't see a dog mountain climbing, right? They weren't built for those things. So to say that like white people are this grand superior being, meanwhile I'm watching you fucking idiots murder yourselves willingly. No offense, I get really angry at this. And then I see like their sons and their daughters be like, yeah, we're the best, man. Yeah, we're totally the best. We're far superior than everyone. I'm just like, your kids on hormone blockers, guy. Your population is acting like a malignant tumor. You're attacking one another. What do you mean you're superior? But it's not to say that like they don't have their superiorities in some aspects. But to claim all superiority is a bit of a stretch, my boy. Deadass. Bit of a stretch. Especially in today's age when literally human behavioral science is king. King. You can literally prove that you can take any individual and craft them the way that you want them to be. If you want them to be a perfect killer, you can do that. And there is behavioral science that can assist you in that entire process, but I can't talk about the truth. Truth hurts people. Either way.